I'm going to say your name, and please tell me.
A ton of stage directions that need to be read here. They really are.
I was hoping you were not going to say that.
Okay.
But
as an audience member, I like to hear the stage directions.
Yes.
It gives me a picture of what's going on. Other than that, if I don't get a picture of what's going on, what am I here for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As an audience member, you could read the stage direction yourself.
There you go.
yeah, Marty.
I like to have Marilyn do some work when she's doing
You like the hat?
I like the hat, Marty. Marty, we like the hat, man.
It's off my head, you know what?
If you put it to the side, it's a different look too.
It's
See,
the
there you go.
newsboy look. The newsboy look.
Different look.
New York
put it in
Post.
front, it's a different look too. Go ahead, put it in front. Watch this look.
No, let's just start already.
Does
Right.
anyone still wear a hat?
I'll drink to that.
I wear helmets now, just hats, not hats.
Tonight, the Mousetrap.
You mean I?
Playing Molly Ralston will be.
Amanda Mazakis.
Playing Giles Ralston.
Kevin Bain.
Playing Christopher Wren.
Harley Diamond.
Playing Mrs. Boyle.
Thomas Gruber. Playing Sergeant, what was his last name? Hector?
Oh, no.
Stephanie.
Right, Mrs. Boyle is Stephanie.
Sergeant Trotter.
Playing Major Metcalf.
Stephanie Benecap.
Larry Gutman.
Playing Mrs. Casewell.
Heather Violante.
Playing Mr. Paravignini.
Marty Goldberg.
And playing Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Thomas Gruber.
When the curtain rises, the stage is in complete darkness. The music fades, giving place to a shrill whistle of the same tune, Three Blind Mice. A woman's piercing scream is heard, and then a mixture of male and female voices saying, "My God, what's that? Went that way. Oh my God."
My God, what's that? Went that way. What's that? Oh, my God.
A police whistle sounds, followed by several other police whistles, all of which fade to silence. A voice on the radio. According to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity, wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country there will be a certain freezing, particularly at points on the north and northwest coast of Scotland.
Mrs. Barlow, Mrs. Barlow. Brr, it's cold. It really does look nice. Oh, how stupid of Giles. Gosh.
Molly? Molly, Molly, where are you?
Doing all the work, you brute.
Oh, there you are. Leave it all to me. Shall I stoke the aga?
Done.
Hello, sweetheart. Your nose is cold.
I've just come in.
Why? Where have you been? Surely you've not been out in this weather.
I had to go down to the village for some stuff I'd forgotten. Did you get the chicken, Nettie?
It wasn't the right kind. I went on to another dump, but that wasn't any good either. Practically a whole day wasted. My God, I'm half frozen. Car was skidding like anything. The snow's coming down thick. What do you bet we're not snowed up tomorrow?
Oh dear, I do hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
We'll have to keep the central heating well stoked up. Not too good. I wish they'd send the Coke along. We've not got any too much.
Oh, I do so want everything to go well at first. First impressions are so important.
Is everything ready? Nobody's arrived yet, I suppose.
No, thank goodness. I think everything's in order. Miss Barlow's hooked it early, after the weather, I suppose. Afraid of the weather, I suppose. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. What a nuisance these daily women are. That leaves everything on your shoulders.
And yours. This is a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
No, that's my department. Anyway, we've got lots of tins in case we're all snowed up. Oh, Giles, do you think it's going to be all right?
Got cold feet, have you? Are you sorry now that we didn't sell the place when your aunt left it to you, instead of having this mad idea of running it as a guest house?
No, I'm not. I love it. And talking of a guest home, just look at that.
Pretty good. What?
It's a disaster, don't you see? You've left out the S, Monkwell, instead of Monkswell.
Good Lord, so I did. However did I come to do that? But it really doesn't matter, does it? Monkwell is just as good as a name.
You're in disgrace. Go and stoke up the central heating.
Across that icy yard? Oh, shall I bank it up for the night now?
No, you don't need to do that until 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
How appalling.
Hurry up. Someone may arrive any minute now.
You've got all the rooms worked out?
Yes. Mrs. Boyle, front four-poster room. Major Metcalf, blue room. Miss Caswell, east room. Mr. Wren, oak room.
I wonder what all these people will be like. Oughtn't we to have got a rent in advance?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
They're rather mugs at this game.
They bring luggage. If they don't pay, we hang on to their luggage. It's quite simple.
I can't help thinking you ought to have taken a correspondence course in hotel keeping. We're sure to get had in some way. Their luggage might be just bricks wrapped up in newspaper, and where should we be then?
They all wrote from very good addresses.
That's what servants with forged references do. Some of these people may be criminals hiding from the police.
I don't care what they are, so long as they pay us 7 guineas a week.
You're such a wonderful woman of business, Molly.
According to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against ice-bound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country, ding dong.
How do you do?
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Weather is simply awful. My taxi gave up at your gate. Wouldn't attempt the drive. No sporting instinct. Are you Mrs. Ralston? How delighted. My name is Wren.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
No, you're not at all as I pictured you. I've been thinking of you as a retired general's widow. Indian Army. I thought you'd be terrifically grim and Mensa Hamish, and the whole place would be simply crammed with Benares brass. Instead, it's heavenly. Quite heavenly. Lovely proportions. That's a fake. Ah, but this table's genuine. I'm simply going to love this place. Have you got any wax flowers or birds of paradise?
I'm afraid not.
Oh, what a pity. Well, what about a sideboard? A purple, plummy, mahogany sideboard with great solid carved fruits on it.
Yes, we have, in the dining room.
In here? I must see it.
Do come and warm yourself.
Absolutely perfect. Real bedrock respectability. But why do away with a center mahogany table? Little tables just spoil the effect.
We thought the guests would prefer them. This is my husband.
I jumped. Is this your husband?
This is my husband.
Ah,
Christopher.
well, how do you do? Terrible weather, isn't it? Takes one back to Dickens and Scrooge and that irritating Tiny Tim. So bogus. Of course, Mrs. Ralston, you're absolutely right about the little tables. I was being carried away by my feeling for period. If you had a mahogany dining table, you'd have to have the right family around it. Stern children. Stern, handsome father, with a beard, prolific, faded mother, 11 children of assorted ages, a grim governess, and somebody called Poor Harriet. The poor relation who acts as general dog's body and is very, very grateful for being given a good home.
I'll take your suitcase upstairs for you. Oak room, did you say?
Yes.
I do hope that it's got a four-poster with little chintz roses.
It hasn't.
Don't believe your husband is going to like me. How long have you been married? Are you very much in love?
We've been married just a year. Perhaps you'd like to go up and see your room?
Ticked off. But I do so like knowing all about people. I mean, I think people are so madly interesting, don't you?
Well, I suppose some are, and some are not.
No, I don't agree. They're all interesting because you never really know what anyone is like or what they are really thinking. For instance, you don't know what I'm thinking about now, do you?
Not in the least. Cigarette?
No, thank you. You see, the only people who really know what other people are like are artists. And they don't know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on the canvas.
Are you a painter?
No, I'm an architect. My parents, you know, baptized me Christopher in the hope that I would be an architect. Christopher Wren. As good as halfway home. Actually, of course, everyone laughs about it and makes jokes about St. Paul's. However, who knows, I may yet have the last laugh. Christopher Wren's prefab nests may yet go down in history. I'm going to like it here. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Indeed.
And really very beautiful.
Oh, don't be absurd.
There, isn't that like an English woman? Compliments always embarrass them. European women take compliments as a matter of course, but English women have all the feminine spirit crushed out of them by their husbands. There's something very boorish about English husbands.
Come and see your room.
Shall I?
Could you stoke up the hot water boiler?
Ding dong. Ding dong.
Is this Monkswell Manor?
Yes.
I am Mrs.
I'm Giles Ralston. Come
Boyle.
into the fire, Mrs. Boyle, and get warm. Awful weather, isn't it? Is this your only luggage?
A Major Metcalf is seeing to it.
I'll leave a door for him.
A taxi wouldn't risk coming up drive. It stopped at the gate. We had to share a taxi from the station. And there was great difficulty in getting back. Nothing ordered to meet us, it seemed.
I'm so sorry. We didn't know what train you would be coming by, you see. Otherwise, of course, we'd have seen that something was standing by.
All trains should have been met.
Let me take your coat. My wife will be here in a moment. I'll just go along and give Metcalf a hand with the bags.
The drive might at least been cleared of snow. Offhand and casual, I must say.
I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ralston?
Yes,
You are very young.
Young?
To be running an establishment of this kind, you can't have had much experience.
There has to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
Quite inexperienced. An old house. I hope you haven't got dry rot.
Certainly not.
A lot of people don't know they have got rot until it's too late to do anything about it.
The house is in perfect condition.
It could do with a coat of paint. You know, you've got worn in the oak wood.
This
You've
way,
got worm
Major.
in this oak wood.
This way, Major. This is my wife.
Oh, how'd you do? Absolute blizzard outside. Thought at one time we shouldn't make it. Oh, I beg your pardon. If it goes on like this, I should say you'll have 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. Not seen anything like it since I was here on leave in 1940.
I'll take these up. Which rooms did you say? A blue room and the rose room?
No, I put Mr. Wren in the rose room. He liked the 4 posters so much. So it's Mrs. Boyle in the oak room and Major Metcalf in the blue room.
Major.
Sir.
You have much.
We have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
Steph, start your video.
Oh.
Steph, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
What about now? No?
Yes.
Yeah, now it's better.
Right. Okay. All right. So,
Molly,
do you have much?
No, you're still breaking up.
Here.
He must be the killer.
Steph, your image is frozen. Can't hear you.
It's murder.
Maybe try exiting and coming back in. Or you can try disconnecting and reconnecting from your Wi-Fi. Sometimes that helps.
Stephanie? Let's see if she comes right back. I think
If
she
not,
came back
she's
now.
written-
Yeah, she came back. She reset.
Yeah, it's something with the connection. It.
Okay, Molly, stay your line.
You hear me now? It's something with my. It's something. I mean, everyone's breaking.
You're the only one breaking up.
We have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
Okay. And what indoor staff?
No indoor staff, just us.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Indeed, I understood this was a guest house in full running order.
We're only just starting.
I would have said that a proper staff of servants was essential before opening this kind of establishment. I consider your advertisement was most misleading. May I ask if I am with Major Metcalf, that is?
Oh, no, there are several other here.
Oh, this weather too, a blizzard. No less, all very unfortunate.
But we couldn't very well foresee the weather.
The north wind doth blow, and it will bring snow. And what will the robin do then, poor thing? I adore nursery rhymes, don't you? Always so tragic and macabre. That's why children like them.
May I introduce Mr. Wren, Mrs. Boyle?
How do you do?
This is a very beautiful home. Don't you think so?
I have come to the town of life on the amenities of an established appearance. If I had not believed this was a running concern, I should never have come here. I understand it was fully equipped with every home comfort.
There is no obligation for you to remain here if you are not satisfied, Mrs. Boyle.
Oh, no, indeed, I should not think of doing so.
If there has been any misapprehension, it would perhaps be better if you went elsewhere. I could ring up for the taxi to return. The roads are not yet blocked. We've had so many applications for rooms that we shall be able to fill your place quite easily. In any case, we are raising our terms next month.
I am certainly not going to leave before I have tried what the place is like. You needn't think you can turn me out now. Perhaps you will take me up to my bedroom, Mrs. Ralston.
Certainly, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you were so wonderful.
I think that it's a perfectly horrible woman. I don't like her at all. I'd love to see you turn her out into the snow. Serves her right.
It's a pleasure I've got to forego, I'm afraid. Lord, there's another of them. Come in. Come in.
Afraid my car's bogged out about half a mile down the road. Ran into a drift.
Let me take this. Any more stuff in the car?
No, I travel light. Huh, glad to see you've got a good fire.
Mr. Wren, Miss
Casewell.
My wife shall be down in a minute.
No hurry. Got to get myself thawed out. Looks as though you're going to be snowed up here. Weather forecast says heavy falls expected. Motorist warned, etc. Hope you've got plenty of provisions in.
Oh, yes, my wife's an excellent manager. Anyway, you can always eat the hens.
Before we start eating each other, eh?
Any news in the paper besides the weather?
Usual political crisis. Oh, yes, and a rather juicy murder.
A murder?
They seem to think...
Oh, I like murder.
Sorry. They seem to think it was a homicidal maniac strangled a woman somewhere near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? The police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity of Culver Street at the time, medium height, wearing darkish overcoat, lightish scarf, and soft felt hat. Police messages to this effect have been broadcast throughout the day.
Useful description. Fits pretty well anyone, wouldn't it?
When it says that the police are anxious to interview someone, is that a polite way of hinting that he's the murderer?
Would be.
Who was the woman who was murdered?
Mrs. Lyon. Mrs. Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
It doesn't say. It doesn't seem to have been robbery.
I told you. Sex maniac.
Here's Miss Casewell, Molly, my wife.
How do you do?
It's an awful night. Would you like to come up to your room? There's water hot if you'd like a bath.
You're right, I would.
I must hurry out into the kitchen to get with things. Major Metcalf is very nice. He won't be difficult. It's Mrs. Boyle really frightens me. We must have a nice dinner. I was thinking of opening 2 tins of minced beef and cereal and a tin of peas and mashing the potatoes. And there's stewed figs and custard. Do you think that will be all right?
Well, I should think so. Not very original, perhaps.
Do let me help. I adore cooking. Why not an omelet? You've got eggs, haven't you?
Oh, yes. We have plenty of eggs. We keep lots of fowls. They don't lay as well as they should, but we've put down a lot of eggs.
And if you've got a bottle of cheap, any type of wine, you could add it to the minced beef and cereals. Uh, did you say? Give it a continental flavor. Show me where the kitchen is and what you've got, and I dare say I shall have an inspiration.
Come on. Isn't he sweet? He's put on an apron and he's getting all the things together. He says it'll leave him to him and don't come back until half an hour. If our guests want to do the cooking themselves, it will save a lot of trouble.
Why on earth did you give him the best room?
I told you, he liked the four-poster.
He liked the pretty four-poster. Well,
Giles.
I've got no use for that kind. You didn't handle his suitcase. I did.
Had it bricks in it?
It was no weight at all. If you ask me, there was nothing inside it. He's probably one of those young men who go about bilking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. I think Mrs. Casewell's rather peculiar, don't you?
Terrible female, if she is a female.
It seems very hard that all of our guests should be either unpleasant or odd. Anyway, I think Major Metcalf's all right, don't you?
Probably drinks.
Oh, do you think so?
No, I don't. I was just feeling rather depressed. Well, at any rate, we know the worst now. They've all arrived.
Ding dong.
Who can that be?
Probably the Culver Street murderer.
Don't.
Oh,
Oh, a thousand pardons. I am, where am I?
this is Monkswell Manor Guest House.
But what stupendous good fortune. Madame. What an answer to prayer. A guest house and a charming hostess. My Rolls Royce, alas, has run into a snowdrift, blinding snow everywhere. I do not know where I am. Perhaps I think so. I think to myself, I shall freeze to death. And then I take a little bag and stagger through the snow. I see before me big iron gates, a habitation. I am saved. Twice I fall in the snow as I come up you drive. But at last I arrive, and immediately despair turns into joy. You can let me have a room, see?
Yes.
It's a rather small one, I'm afraid.
Oh, naturally. You have other guests.
We've only just opened this place as our guest house today, and so we're rather new at it.
Oh, charming.
What about your luggage?
Oh, that is of no consequence. I have locked the car securely.
But wouldn't it be better to get in?
No. I can assure you, on such a night as this, there will be no thieves abroad. And for me, my wants are very simple. I have all that I need here in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
You'd better get thoroughly warm. I'll see about your room. I'm afraid it's a rather cold room because it faces north, but all the others are occupied.
You have several guests then.
There's Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalf and Miss Casewell and a young man called Christopher Wren. And now you.
Yes, see, the unexpected guest. The guest that you did not invite. The guest who has just arrived from nowhere, out of the storm. It sounds quite dramatic, does it not? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Me, I am the man of mystery. But now I tell you this. I complete the picture. From now on, there will be no more arrivals and no departures either. By tomorrow, perhaps even already, we are cut off from a civilization. No butcher, no banker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers. Nobody and nothing but ourselves. This is admirable. It could not suit me better. My name, by the way, is Paravicini.
Oh, yes. Ours is Ralston.
Mrs. and Mrs. Ralston. And this is a Monkswell Manor Guest House, so you said. Good. Monkswell Manor Guest House. Perfect.
Blackout. Scene 2. The same the following afternoon. When the curtain rises, it is not snowing. but snow can be seen banked high against the window. Major Metcalf is seated on the sofa reading a book, and Mrs. Boyle is sitting in the large armchair in front of the fire, writing on a pad on her knee.
I consider it most dishonest not to have told me they were only just starting this place. Oh, gosh. All right.
Well, everything's got to have a beginning, you know. Excellent breakfast this morning, good coffee, scrambled eggs, homemade marmalade, and all nicely served, too. Little woman does it all herself.
Amateurs. There should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch, too.
Corned beef.
But very well disguised corned beef, red wine in it. Mrs. Ralston promised to make a pie for us tonight.
These radiators are not really hot. I shall speak about it.
Very comfortable beds, too. At least mine was. Hope yours was, too.
It was quite adequate. I don't see why the best bedrooms should have been given to that very peculiar young man.
Who got here ahead of us? First come, first served.
From the advertisement, I got quite a different impression of what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room and a much larger place altogether with bridge and other amenities.
Regular old Tabby's delight.
I beg your pardon.
Yes, I quite see what you mean.
No, indeed, I shan't stay here long.
No, I don't suppose you will.
Really, this is a very peculiar young man, unbalanced mentally. I shouldn't wonder.
Think he escaped from a lunatic asylum?
He shouldn't be at all surprised.
Giles,
Yes?
can you shove the snow away again from the back door?
Coming.
I'll give you a hand, Wat. Good exercise. Must have exercise.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Really? What an incredible young woman. Doesn't she know anything about housework? Carrying a carpet sweeper through the front hall? Aren't there any back stairs?
Oh, yes, nice back stairs. Very convenient if there was a fire.
Then why not use them? Anyway, all the housework should have been done in the morning before lunch.
I gather our hostess had to cook the lunch.
Very haphazard and amateurish. There should be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
No, indeed, the lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Poor old lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you are a socialist?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm not a red, just pale pink. But I don't take much interest in politics. I live abroad.
I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
I don't have to cook and clean, as I gather most people have to do in this country.
This country has gone sadly downhill, not what it used to be. I sold my whole house last year. Everything was too difficult.
Hotels and guest houses are easier.
They certainly solve some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
Depends. I've got some business to see to. When it's done, I shall go back.
To France?
No.
Italy?
No.
Would you mind not having that on quite so loud? I always find the radio rather distracting when one is trying to write letters.
Do you?
If you don't particularly want to listen, just now.
My favorite music. There's a writing table in there.
I know, but it's much warmer here.
Much warmer. I agree. Bloody old bitch.
Oh!
Hello.
Wherever I go, that woman seems to hunt me down, and then she glares at me. Positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that all right?
Oh, yes, served its purpose.
What purpose?
Hacked Dick's boy.
Oh, you mean her?
He'd pimped the best chair. I've got it now.
Ah, you drove her out. I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her a bit. Let's think of things we can do to annoy her, shall we? I wish she'd go away from here.
It's not a hope.
But when the snow melts.
Oh, when the snow melts, lots of things may have happened.
Ah, yes, that's true. Snow's rather lovely. So peaceful and pure. It makes one forget things.
Doesn't make me forget.
How fierce you sound.
I was thinking.
What sort of thinking?
Ice on a bedroom jug, chilblains raw and bleeding, one thin, ragged blanket. A child shivering with cold and fear.
My dear, it sounds too grim. What is it? A novel?
You didn't know I was a writer, did you?
Ah, are you?
Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, I'm not.
Ring, 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 ring. Ring, 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 ring.
Yes? Yes, this is Monkswell Manor Guest House. What? No, I'm afraid Mr. Ralston can't come to the telephone just now. This is Miss Ralston speaking. Who? The Berkshire Police? Oh, yes, Superintendent Hogbin. I'm afraid that's impossible. He'd never get here. We're snowed up, completely snowed up. The roads are impassable. Nothing can get through. Yes, very well. But what? Hello? Hello?
Molly, do you know where there's another spade?
Giles, the police have just rung up.
Trouble with the police, eh? Serving liquor without a license.
They're sending out an inspector or a sergeant or something.
But he'll never get here.
That's what I told them. But they seemed quite confident that he would.
Nonsense. Even a jeep couldn't get through today. Anyway, what's it all about?
That's what I asked, but he wouldn't say. Just said I was to impress on my husband to listen very carefully to what Sergeant Trotter, I think it was, had to say, and to follow his instructions implicitly. Isn't it extraordinary?
What on earth do you think we've done?
Do you think it's those nylons from Gibraltar?
I did remember to get the wireless license, didn't I?
Yes, it's in the kitchen dresser.
I had rather a near shave with the car the other day, but it was entirely the other fellow's fault.
You must have done something.
Probably something to do with the running of this place. I expect we've ignored some tin pot regulation or some ministry of other. You practically can't avoid it nowadays.
Oh dear, I wish we'd never started this place. We're going to be snowed up for days and everyone is cross, and we shall go through all our reserve of tins.
Cheer up, darling. Everything's going to be all right at the moment. I filled up all the coal scuttles and brought in the wood and stoked the aga and done the hens. I'll go and do the boiler next and chop some kindling. You know, Molly, come to think of it, it must be something pretty serious to send a police sergeant trekking out in all this. It must be something really urgent.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Ralston. Do you know the central heating in the library is practically stone cold?
Sorry, Mrs. Boyle, we're a bit short of coke.
I am paying 7 guineas a week here. 7 guineas, and I do not want to freeze.
I'll go and stoke it up.
Mrs. Ralston, if you don't mind my saying so, that is a very extraordinary young man you have staying here. His manners and his ties. Does he ever brush his hair?
He's an extremely brilliant young architect.
Beg your pardon.
Christopher Wren is an architect.
My dear young woman, I have naturally heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. You young people seem to think that no one is educated but yourselves.
I meant this Wren. His name is Christopher. His parents called him that because they'd hoped he'd be an architect. And he is, or nearly one. So it turned out all right.
Sounds a fishy story to me. I should make some inquiries about him if I were you. What do you know of him?
Just as much as I know about you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you're both paying us 7 guineas a week. This is really all I need to know, isn't it? And it all concerns me. It doesn't matter to me whether I like my guests or whatever. I mean, I don't...
Now, you are young and inexperienced and should welcome advice from someone more knowledgeable than yourself. And what about this foreigner?
What about him?
You aren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away the bona fide travelers against the law, Mrs. Boyle. You should know that.
Why do you say that?
Weren't you a magistrate sitting on a bench, Mrs. Boyle?
All I say is that this Paravicini, or whatever he calls himself, seems to me...
Beware, dear lady. You're talking to the devil, and here he is.
I didn't hear you come in.
I came in on a tiptoe, like this. Nobody even hears me if I do not want them to. I find that very amusing.
Indeed.
Yes, and now there was a young lady.
Well, I must get on with my letters. I'll see if it's a little warmer in the library.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
Everything's rather difficult this morning because of the snow.
Yes, the snow makes things difficult, doesn't it? Does it not? Or else it makes them easy. Yes, very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
No. There is quite a lot you do not know. I think, for one thing, that you do not know very much about running a guest house.
I dare say we don't. But we mean to make a go of it.
Bravo.
I'm not such a very bad cook.
You are without a doubt an enchanting cook. May I give you a little word of a warning, Mrs. Ralston? You and your husband must not be too trusting, you know. Have you references with these guests of yours?
Is that usual? I always thought people just came.
It is advisable to know a little about the people who sleep under your roof. Take, for example, myself. I turn up saying that my car is overturned in a snowdrift. And what do you know of me? Nothing at all. I may be a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer.
Oh.
You see? And perhaps you know just as a little of your other guests.
Well, as far as Mrs. Boyle goes.
The library is far too cold to sit in. I shall write my letters in here.
Oh, allow me to poke in the fire for you.
Sorry.
Major Metcalf.
Major Metcalf, you're muted.
Unmute. Larry. There you go.
Okay. Mrs. Ralston, is your husband about? I'm afraid the pipes of the downstairs cloakroom are frozen.
Oh dear. What an awful day. First the police and then the pipes.
Police?
Police, did you say?
They rang up just now to say they're sending a sergeant out here. But I don't think he'll ever get here.
The ruddy coats more than half stones, and the price of... Hello, is anything the matter?
I hear the police are on their way here. Why?
Oh, that's all right. No one can get through in this. Why, the drifts must be 5 feet deep. The roads are all banked up. Nobody will get here today. Excuse me, Mr. Paravicini. May I put these down?
Are you Mr. Ralston?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, sir. Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Can I get these skis off and stow them somewhere?
Go round that way to the front door and I'll meet you.
Thank you, sir.
I suppose Because that's what we pay our police force for nowadays, to go around enjoying themselves in winter sports.
Why did you send her for the police, Mrs. Ralston?
But I didn't.
Who's that man? Where did he come from? He passed the drawing room window on skis, all over snow and looking terribly hearty.
You may believe it or not, but that man's a policeman. A policeman skiing!
This is Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Good afternoon.
You can't be a sergeant, you're too young.
I'm not quite as young as I look, madam.
But terribly hearty.
We'll stow your skis away under the stairs.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston, but may I use your telephone?
Of course, Major Metcalf.
It's very attractive, don't you think so? I always think that policemen are very attractive.
No, Brains, you can see that at a glance.
Hello? Hello? Mrs. Ralston, this telephone is dead. Quite dead.
It was all right about a half an hour ago.
The line's gone with the weight of the snow, I suppose.
So we're quite cut off now. Quite cut off. That's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything to laugh at.
No, indeed.
It's a private joke of my own. Hist! The sleuth is returning.
Now, can we get to business, Mr. Ralston? Mrs. Ralston?
Do you want to see us alone? If so, we can go into the library.
It's not necessary, sir. It'll save time if everybody's present. If I might sit at this table?
Oh, do hurry up and tell us. What have we done?
Done? It's not that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's something quite different. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand me.
Police protection?
It relates to the death of Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon of 24 Culver Street, London, who was murdered yesterday, the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case.
Yes, I heard it on the wireless. The woman who was strangled?
That's right, madam. The first thing I want to know is if you were acquainted with this Mrs. Lyon.
I never heard of her.
You mayn't have known of her under the name of Lyon. Lyon wasn't her real name. She had a police record and her fingerprints were on file, so we were able to identify her without difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Stanning. Her husband was a farmer, John Stanning, who resided at Long Ridge Farm, not very far from here.
Long Ridge Farm? Wasn't that where those children...
Yes, Long Ridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss. The Corrigans. 2 boys and a girl brought before the court as in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with Mr. and Mrs. Stanning at Long Ridge Farm. One of the children subsequently died as a result of criminal neglect and persistent ill treatment. Case made a bit of a sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Stanning died in prison. Mrs. Stanning served her sentence and was duly released. Yesterday, as I say, she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Who did it?
I'm coming to that, madam. A notebook was picked up near the scene of the crime. In that notebook was written 2 addresses. One was 24 Culver Street, the other was Mousetrap Manor.
What?
Yes, sir. That's why Superintendent Hogben, on receiving this information from Scotland Yard, thought it imperative for me to come out here and find out if you knew any connection between this house or anyone in this house and the Long Ridge Farm case.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing. It must be a coincidence.
Superintendent Hogben doesn't think it is a coincidence, sir. He'd have come himself if it had been any way possible under the weather conditions, and as I can ski, he sent me with instructions to get full particulars of everyone in the house, to report back to him by phone, and to take what measures I thought fit to ensure the safety of the household.
Safety? What danger does he think we're in? Good Lord, he's not suggesting that somebody is going to be killed here.
I don't want to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
That's what I'm here to find out.
But the whole thing's crazy.
Yes, sir, it's because it's crazy that it's dangerous.
Nonsense.
I must say, it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there something that you haven't told us, Sergeant?
Yes, Mrs. Ralston. Below the two addresses was written 3 blind mice. And on the dead woman's body was a paper with "This is the first" written on it. And below the words, a drawing of 3 little mice and a bar of music. The music was the tune of the nursery rhyme, 3 blind mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind
mice. See how they run. They all run after the farmer's wife. Oh, it's horrible.
There were 3 children and 1 died?
Yes, the youngest, a boy of 11.
What happened to the other 2?
The girl was adopted by someone. We haven't been able to trace her present whereabouts. The elder boy would now be about 22, deserted from the army and has not been heard of since. According to the army psychologist, was definitely schizophrenic. A bit queer in the head, that's to say.
They think that it was he who killed Miss Lyon, Mrs. Stanning?
Yes.
And that he's a homicidal maniac? And that he will turn up here and try to kill someone? But why?
That's what I've got to find out from you. As the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now, you state, sir, that you yourself have never had any connection with the Longridge farm case?
No.
And the same goes for you, madam?
No. I mean, no connection.
What about servants?
We haven't gotten any servants. That reminds me. Would you mind, Sergeant Trotter, if I went into the kitchen? I'll be there if you want me.
That's quite all right, Mrs. Ralston. Now, can I have all your names?
This is quite ridiculous. We are merely staying in a kind of hotel. You only arrived yesterday. Nothing to do with this place.
You'd planned to come here in advance, though. You'd booked your rooms here ahead.
Well, yes, all except Mr.
Paravicini. My car overturned in a snowdrift.
I see. What I'm getting at is that anyone who's been following you around might know very well that you were coming here. Now, there's just one thing I want to know, and I want to know it quick. Which one of you is it that has some connection with that business at Longridge Farm? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you is in danger, deadly danger. I've got to know which one that is. All right, I'll ask you one by one. You first, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident, Mr.
Paravicini. Yes, my dear inspector. I know nothing, but nothing of what you have been talking about. I am a stranger in this country. I know nothing of these local affairs of bygone years.
Mrs.
Boyle, I don't see, really. I consider it an impertinence. Why on earth should I have anything to do with this distressing business?
Miss...
Casewell. Leslie Casewell. I never heard of Longridge Farm, and I know nothing about it.
You, sir?
Metcalf, Major. Read about the case in the papers at the time. I was stationed at Edinburgh then. No personal knowledge.
And you?
Christopher Wren. I was a mere child at the time. I don't remember even hearing about it.
And that's all you have to say, any of you? Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll have yourself to blame. Now then, Mr. Alston, can I have a look around the house?
My dears, how melodramatic. He's very attractive, isn't he? I do admire the police. So stern and hard-boiled. Quite a thrill, this whole business. 3 blind mice. How does that tune go?
Really, Mr. Wren?
Don't you like it? But it's a signature tune. The signature of the murderer. Just fancy what a kick he must be getting out of it.
Oh, melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
But just wait, Mrs. Boyle, till I creep up behind you and you feel my hands on your throat.
Stop!
That'll do, Christopher. It's a poor joke anyway. In fact, it's not a joke at all.
Oh, but it is. That's just what it is, a madman's joke. That's just what makes it so deliciously macabre. If you could just see your faces.
A singularly ill-mannered and erotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Taking our policeman on a conducted tour of the house.
Your friend, the architect, has been behaving in a most abnormal manner.
Young fellows seem nervy nowadays. Dare say he'll grow out of it.
Nerves? I've no patience with people who say they have nerves. I haven't any nerves.
No. Perhaps that's just as well for you, Mrs. Boyle.
What do you mean?
I think you were actually one of the magistrates on the bench at the time. In fact, you were responsible for sending those 3 children to Longbridge Farm.
Really, Major Metcalf, I can hardly be held responsible. We had reports from welfare workers. The farm people seemed very nice and were most anxious to have the children. It seemed most satisfactory. Eggs and fresh milk and a healthy out-of-doors life.
Kicks, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
But how was I to know? They were very civilly spoken.
Yes, I was right. It was you.
One tries to do a public duty and all one gets is abuse.
Oh, you must forgive me, but indeed I find all this most amusing. I enjoy myself greatly.
I never did like that man.
Where did he come from last night?
I don't know.
Looks a bit of a spiv to me. Makes his face up too. Rouge and powder. Disgusting. He must be quite old, too.
And yet he skips about as though he were quite young.
Oh, you'll be wanting more wood. I'll get it.
It's almost dark, and yet it's only 4 in the afternoon. I'll turn the lights on. That's better.
Now, where did I leave my pen?
Oh, what a horrid little tune that is.
Don't you like it? Remind you of your childhood, perhaps? An unhappy childhood?
I was very happy as a child.
You're lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a long time ago. One gets over things.
I suppose so.
Or doesn't one? Damned hard to say.
They say that what happened when you're a child matters more than anything else.
They say, who says?
Psychologists.
All humbug. Just a damn lot of nonsense. I've no use for psychologists and psychiatrists.
I've never really had much to do with them.
Good thing for you, you haven't. It's all a lot of hooey, the whole thing. Life's what you make of it. Go straight ahead. Don't look back.
One can't always help looking back.
Nonsense. It's a question of willpower.
Perhaps.
I know.
I expect you're right. But sometimes things happen to make you remember.
Don't give in. Turn your back on them.
Is that really the right way? I wonder. Perhaps that's all wrong. Perhaps one really ought to face them.
Depends what you're talking about.
Sometimes I hardly know what I'm talking about.
Nothing from the past is going to affect me, except the way I want it to.
Well, everything's all right upstairs. Hello? Start the video. Oh, down here. All right, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Well, everything's all right upstairs.
What's in here? Oh, no.
I think that's Trotter. What's in here?
Oh, is that me? Okay. Well, what's in here?
Yeah, someone is not starting my video. I don't know why. Hold on.
You have to start your own video.
Okay. It says you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it. All right, now I could start it. Okay. All right.
Want me to take it again? Well,
Yeah.
Well, everything's all right upstairs. What's in here?
Would you mind shutting that door? This place is full of drafts.
Sorry, madam, but I've got to get the lay of the land.
Molly, what's all this?
Well, that completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. I think I'll make my report now to Superintendent Hogman.
But you can't telephone. The line's dead.
What? Since when?
Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
But it was all right earlier. Superintendent Hogman got through all right.
Oh, yes. I suppose since then, the lines are down with the snow.
I wonder. It may have been cut.
But cut? But who could cut it?
Mr. Ralston, just how much do you know about these people who are staying in your guest house?
We don't really know anything about them.
Ah.
Mrs. Boyle wrote from a Bournemouth hotel. Major Metcalf from an address in, where was it?
Leamington.
Wren wrote from Hampstead, and the Casewell woman from a private hotel in Kensington. Paravicini, as we told you, turned up out of the blue last night. Still, I suppose they've all got ration books, that sort of thing.
I shall go into all that, of course, but that's not much reliance to be placed on that sort of evidence.
But even if this maniac is trying to get here and kill us all, or one of us, we're quite safe now because of the snow. No one can get here till it melts.
Unless he's here already.
Here already?
Well, why not, Mr. Ralston? All these people arrived here yesterday evening, some hours after the murder of Mrs. Stanning. Plenty of time to get here.
But except for Mr. Paravicini, they'd all booked beforehand.
Well, why not? These crimes were planned.
Crimes? There's only been one crime in Culver Street. Why are you sure there will be another here?
That it will happen here? No, I hope to prevent that. That it will be attempted, yes.
I can't believe it. It's so fantastic.
It isn't fantastic. It's just facts.
You've got a description of what this man looked like in London?
Medium height, indeterminate build, darkish overcoat, soft felt hat, face hidden by a muffler. Spoke in a whisper. There are 3 darkish overcoats hanging up in the hall now. One of them is yours, Mr. Ralston. There are 3 lightish felt hats.
Still can't believe it.
You see? It's this telephone wire that worries me. If it's been cut...
I must go and get on with the vegetables.
Is there an extension?
I beg your pardon. Did you say something?
Yes, Mr. Ralston. I said, is there an extension?
Yes, up in our bedroom.
Go and try it up there for me, will you? Try to continue to trace the wire down the window.
It says I cannot start my video. The host has disabled it. Okay, now I could start it. All right. Who left this window open? Oh, wait. Who left this window open? Who left this window open?
Who's the voice on the radio?
Sorry. To understand what I may term as the mechanics of fear, you have to study the precise effect produced on the human mind. Imagine, for instance, that you are alone in a room. It is late in the afternoon. A door opens softly behind you.
Oh, it's you. I can't find any program worth listening to. Here, what are you doing? Why did you turn out the light?
Why is it all dark? What a noise.
Blackout. Take 5 or you want to just move right through?
Let's go through.
Act 2, scene, the same time, 10 minutes later. When the curtain rises, Mrs. Boyle's body has been removed and everyone is assembled in the room. Trotter is in charge and is sitting on the upstage side of the refectory table. Molly is standing at the right end of the refectory table. The others are all sitting. Major Metcalf in a large armchair, Christopher at the desk chair, Giles on the stairs, Mrs. Casewell at the end of the sofa, and Paravicini at the end.
Now, Mrs. Ralston, try and think.
I can't think. My head's numbed.
Mrs. Boyle had only just been killed when you got to her. You came from the kitchen. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anybody as you came along the hallway?
No, I don't think so. Just the radio blaring out in here. I couldn't think who turned it on so loud. I wouldn't hear anything else with that, would I?
That was clearly the murderer's idea, or murderess.
How could I hear anything else?
You might have done if the murderer had left the hall that way. He might have heard you coming from the kitchen. He might have slipped up the back stairs and into the dining room.
I'm not sure. I heard a door creak and shut just as I came out of the kitchen.
Which door?
I don't know.
Think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, right, left?
I don't know, I tell you. I'm not even sure I heard anything.
Can't you stop bullying her? Can't you see that she's all in?
We're investigating a murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to now, nobody has taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. She held out on me with information. You all held out on me. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. Unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly, mind, there may be another death.
Another? Nonsense, why?
Because there were 3 little blind mice.
A death for each of them? But there would have to be some connection. I mean, another connection with the Long Ridge Farm business.
Yes, there would have to be that.
But why another death here?
Because there were only 2 addresses in the notebook we found. Now, at 24 Culver Street, there was only one possible victim. She's dead. But here at Monkswell Manor, there is a wider field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there should be 2 people brought here by chance, both of them with a share in the Longridge Farm case.
Given certain circumstances, it wouldn't be so much of a coincidence. Think it out, Miss Casewell. Now, I want to get down quite clearly where everyone was when Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen preparing vegetables. You came out of the kitchen along the passage, through the swing door into the hall and in here. The radio was blaring, but the light was switched off and the hall was dark. You switched the light on, saw Mrs. Boyle and screamed.
Yes, I screamed and screamed. And at last people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. A lot of people from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now then, when I got out of that window to trace the phone wire, you Mr. Ralston went upstairs to the room you and Mrs. Ralston occupy to try the extension telephone. Where were you when Mrs. Ralston screamed?
I was still up in the bedroom. The extension telephone was dead, too. I looked out of the window to see if I could see any sign of the wires being cut there, but I couldn't. Just after I closed the window again, I heard Molly scream and I rushed down.
Those simple actions took you rather a long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
I should say you definitely took your time over them.
I was thinking about something.
Oh, very well. Now then, Mr. N, I'll have your account of where you were.
I'd been in the kitchen, seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. I adore cooking. After that, I went upstairs to my bedroom.
Why?
It's quite a natural thing to go to one's bedroom, don't you think? I mean, one does want to be alone sometimes.
You went to your bedroom because you wanted to be alone?
And I wanted to brush my hair and tidy up.
You wanted to brush your hair?
Anyway, that's where I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And you came down?
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs.
I came down by the back stairs. They're nearer to my room.
Did you go to your room by the back stairs, or did you come through here?
I went up the back stairs, too.
I see. Mr. Paravicini?
I've told you, I was playing the piano in the drawing room through there, Inspectore.
I'm not an inspector, just a sergeant, Mr. Paravicini. Did anyone hear you playing the piano?
I do not expect so. I was playing very, very softly with one finger, so.
You were playing Three Blind Mice.
Is that so?
I see. It's a very catchy little tune. It is, how shall I say, a haunting little tune. Don't you all agree?
I think it's horrible.
And yet, it runs in the people's heads. Somebody was whistling it too.
Whistling it? Where?
I'm not sure. Perhaps in the front hall. Perhaps on the stairs. Perhaps even upstairs in a better room.
Who was whistling Three Blind Mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Paravicini?
No, Inspectore. I beg your pardon, Sargento. I would not do a thing like that.
Well, go on. You were playing the piano.
I see, with one finger so. And then I heard of the radio, playing very loud. Someone is shouting on it. It's offending my ears. After that, suddenly, I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs, Mr. N upstairs, Mr. Paravicini in drawing room. Miss Casewell?
I was writing letters in the library.
Could you hear what was going on in here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
And what did you do then?
I came in here.
At once?
Yes, I think so.
You say you were writing letters when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And got up from the writing table hurriedly and came in here?
Yes.
And yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letter on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Dearest, just, a friend of yours or a relation?
That's none of your damned business.
Perhaps not. If I were to hear someone screaming blue murder when I was writing a letter, I don't believe I'd take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, and put it in my handbag before going to see what was the matter.
You wouldn't. How interesting.
Now, Major Metcalf, what about you? You say you were in the cellar. Why?
Looking around, just looking around. I looked into that cupboard place under the stairs near the kitchen. Lot of junk and sports tackle. And I noticed there was another door inside it, and I opened it and saw a flight of steps. I was curious, and I went down. Nice cellars you've got.
glad you like them.
Not at all. A crypt of an old monastery, I should say. Probably why this place is called Monk's Well.
We're not engaged in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. We're investigating a murder. Mrs. Ralston has told us that she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shuts with a creak. It could be, you know, that after killing Mrs. Boyle, the murderer heard Mrs. Ralston coming from the kitchen and slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door after him.
Oh, a lot of things could be.
Well, there would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard.
Well, mine are there all right. But most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual, but all criminals slip up sooner or later.
Ah, I wonder, Sargento, if it's really true.
Look here. Aren't we wasting time? There's one person who would...
Please, Mr. Ralston, I'm in charge of this investigation.
Oh, very well, but...
Mr. Ralston, thank you. We've got to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And now let me tell you this. You all had opportunity.
I don't know that I was upstairs, and it doesn't make sense.
There are two staircases. Anyone could go up by one and come down by the other. Anyone could go down to the cellars by the door near the kitchen and come up by the flight of steps that leads up through a trapdoor to the foot of the stairs over there. The vital fact was that every one of you was alone at the time the murder was committed.
But look here, Sergeant. You speak as though we were all under suspicion. That's absurd.
In a murder case, everyone is under suspicion.
But you know pretty well who killed that woman in Culver Street. You think it's the eldest of those 3 children at the farm. A mentally abnormal young man who is now 23 years of age. Well, damn it all, there's only one person here who fits the bill.
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me. Everyone's always been against me. You're going to frame me for a murder? It's persecution. That's what it is. Persecution.
Steady, lad, steady.
It's all right. Chris, nobody's against you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anyone. To do that, I've got to have evidence. I haven't got any evidence yet.
I think you're crazy, Molly. And you too. There's just one person who fits the bill, and if only as a safety measure, he ought to be put under arrest. It's only fair to the rest of us.
Wait, Giles, wait. Sergeant Trotter, can I speak to you a minute?
Certainly, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you go into the dining room, please?
I'm staying.
No, Giles, you too, please.
I'm staying. I don't know what's come over you, Molly.
Please.
They all exit. Yes, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you want to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that this crazy killer must be the eldest of those 3 boys at the farm. But you don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we've got so far is that the woman who joined with her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed, and that the woman magistrate who was responsible for placing them there has been killed. The telephone wire that links me with police headquarters has been cut.
You don't even know that. It may have just been the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston, the line was deliberately cut. It was just outside by the front door. I found the place.
I see.
Sit down, Mrs. Ralston.
But all the same, you don't know.
I'm going by probability. It all points one way. Mental instability, childish mentality, desertion from the army, and the psychiatrist's report.
Oh, I know. And therefore, it all seems to point to Christopher. But I don't believe it is Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Well, Hadn't those 3 children any relations at all?
The mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken away from her.
What about their father?
He was an army sergeant serving abroad. If he's alive, he's probably discharged from the army by now.
You don't know where he is now?
We've no information. To trace him may take some time, but I can assure you, Mrs. Ralston, that the police take every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he may be at this minute. And if the son is mentally unstable, the father may have been unstable too.
Well, it's a possibility.
If he came home, after being a prisoner with the Japs perhaps, and having suffered terribly, if he came home and found his wife dead and that his children had gone through some terrible experience, and one of them had died through it, he might go off his head a bit and want revenge.
That's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's quite possible.
So the murderer may be middle-aged or even old. When I say the police had rung up, Major Metcalf was frightfully upset. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf?
Middle-aged, a soldier. He seemed quite nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
So it's not only Christopher who's a suspect, there's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Well, Mr. Paravicini did drop the poker when I said the police had rung up.
Mr. Paravicini?
I know he seems quite old and foreign and everything, but he mightn't really be as old as he looks. He moves like a much younger man, and he's definitely got makeup on his face. Miss Caswell noticed it too. He might be, oh, I know it sounds very dramatic, but it might be a disguise.
You're very anxious, aren't you, that it shouldn't be young Mr. Wren?
He seems so helpless somehow and so unhappy.
Mrs. Ralston, let me tell you something. I've had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. The boy Georgie, the father, and someone else. There was a sister, you remember.
Oh, the sister?
It could have been a woman who killed Maureen Lyon. A woman. The muffler pulled up and the man's felt hat pulled well down and the killer whispered, you know. It's the voice that gives the sex away. Yes, it might have been a woman.
Miss Casewell?
She looks a bit old for the part. Oh, yes, Mrs. Ralston, there's a very wide field. There's yourself, for instance.
Me?
You are. You're about the right age. No, whatever you tell me about yourself, I've got no means of checking it at this moment, remember? And then there's your husband.
Giles? How ridiculous.
He and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Say, your husband looks older than his years and Christopher Wren looks younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. How much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
How much do I know about Giles? Oh, don't be silly.
You've been married how long?
Just a year.
And you met him where?
At a dance in London. We went in a party.
Did you meet his people?
He hasn't any people. They're all dead.
They're all dead?
Yes, but oh, you make it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister, and his mother died when he was a baby.
You're only telling me what he told you.
Yes, but
You don't know it of your own knowledge.
it's outrageous.
You'd be surprised, Mrs. Ralston, if you knew how many cases rather like yours we get, especially since the war. Homes broken up and families dead. Fellow says he's been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. Parents killed, no relations. There aren't any backgrounds nowadays, and young people settle their own affairs. They meet and marry. It's parents and relatives who used to make the inquiries before they consented to an engagement. That's all done away with. Girl just marries her man. Sometimes she doesn't find out for a year or two that he's an absconding bank clerk or an army deserter or something equally undesirable. How long had you known Giles Ralston when you married him?
Just 3 weeks, but
And you don't know anything about him?
That's not true. I know everything about him. I know exactly the sort of person he is. He's Giles. And it's absolutely absurd to suggest that he's some horrible, crazy, homicidal maniac. Why, he wasn't even in London yesterday when the murder took place.
Where was he? Here?
He went across country to a sale to get some wire netting for our chickens.
Bring it back with him?
No, it turned out to be the wrong kind.
Only 30 miles from London, aren't you? You've got an ABC? Only an hour by train, a little longer by car.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. This your husband's coat?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Oh, yes, yesterday, sold on the streets about 3 p.m.
I don't believe it.
Don't you?
Molly!
Oh, you startled me.
Where is he? Where has he gone?
Oh.
The sergeant.
Oh, he went out that way.
If only I could get away. Somehow, some way. Is there anywhere I could hide in the house?
Hide?
Yes, from him.
Why?
But darling, they're all so frightfully against me. They're going to say I committed these murders, particularly your husband.
Never mind him. Listen, Christopher, you can't go on running away from things all your life.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's true, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's quite true.
Got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name really isn't Christopher Wren, is it?
No.
And you're not really training to be an architect?
No.
Why did you...
Call myself Christopher Wren? It just amused me. And then they used to laugh at me at school and call me Little Christopher Robin. Robin, Wren, association of ideas. It was hell being at school.
What is your real name?
We needn't go into that. I ran away whilst I was doing my army service. It was all so beastly. I hated it. Yes, I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told you I was the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother...
Yes, your mother?
Everything would be all right if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me and looked after me.
You can't go on being looked after all your life. Things happen to you, and you've got to bear them. You've got to go on just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Was it to do with Giles?
No, it was long before I met Giles.
You must have been very young, almost a child.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. It was horrible, horrible. I try to put it out of my mind. I try never to think about it.
So, you're running away too. Running away from things instead of facing them.
Yes, perhaps in a way I am. Considering that I never saw you until yesterday, we seem to know each other rather well.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
No, I suppose there's a sort of sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I ought to stick it out?
Well, frankly, what else can you do?
I might pinch the sergeant's skis. I can ski quite well.
That would be frightfully stupid. It would be almost like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
No, he doesn't. At least, I don't know what he thinks. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Who?
Sergeant Trotter. He puts things into your head. Things that aren't true, that can't possibly be true.
What is all this?
I don't believe it. I won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on, out with it.
You see that?
Yes?
What is it? Yesterday's evening paper? A London paper? And it was in Giles' pocket. But Giles didn't go to London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all day.
He wasn't. He went off in the car to look at chicken wire, but he couldn't find any.
Well, that's all right. Probably he did go up to London after all.
Then why shouldn't he tell me he did? Why pretend he'd been driving around the countryside?
Perhaps with the news of this murder.
He didn't know about the murder. Or did he? Did he?
Good Lord, Molly. Surely you don't think... The sergeant doesn't think...
I don't know what the sergeant thinks. And he can make you think about things about people. You ask yourself questions and you begin to doubt. You feel that somebody you love and know, might be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends and then you suddenly look at their faces and they're not your friends any longer. They're different people, just pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anybody. Perhaps everybody's a stranger.
It says the host disabled my video. It says
Then he must
host,
be the murderer.
I can't stop my video. The host disabled it.
We see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. I seem to be interrupting something.
No, we were just talking. I must go in the kitchen. There's a pie and potatoes, and I must do the spinach.
I'll come and give you a hand.
No, you won't.
Giles.
Tete-a-tetes aren't very healthy things at present. You keep out of the kitchen and keep away from my wife.
But really, look here.
You keep away from my wife, Red. She's not going to be the next victim.
So that's what you think about me.
I've already said so, haven't I? There's a killer loose in this house, and it seems to me you fit the bill.
I'm not the only one who fits the bill.
I don't see who else does.
How blind you are. Or do you just pretend to be blind?
I tell you I'm worrying about my wife's safety.
So am I. I'm not going to leave you here alone with her.
What the hell?
Please go, Chris.
I'm not going.
Please go, Christopher. Please, I mean it.
I shan't be far away.
What's all this? Molly, you must be crazy. Perfectly prepared to shut yourself up in the kitchen with a homicidal maniac?
He isn't.
You've only got to look at him and see he's balmy.
He isn't. He's just unhappy. I tell you, Giles, he isn't dangerous. I'd know if he was dangerous. And anyway, I can look after myself.
That's what Mrs. Boyle said.
Oh, Giles, don't.
Look here. What is there between you and that wretched boy?
What do you mean by between us? I'm sorry for him, that's all.
Perhaps you'd met him before. Perhaps you suggested to him to come here and that you'd both pretend to meet for the first time, all cooked up between you. Was it?
Giles, have you gone out of your mind? How dare you suggest these things?
Rather odd, isn't it, that he should come and stay in an out-of-the-way place like this?
No odder than Miss Casewell and Major Metcalf and Mrs. Boyle should.
I read once in a paper that these homicidal cases were able to attract women. Looks as though it were true. When did you first know him? How long has this been going on?
You're being absolutely ridiculous. I've never set eyes on Christopher Wren until he arrived yesterday.
That's what you say. Perhaps you've been running up to London to meet him on the sly.
You know perfectly well that I haven't been up to London for weeks.
You haven't been up to London for weeks? Is that so?
What on earth do you mean? It's quite true.
Is it? Then what's this? This is one of the gloves you were wearing yesterday. You dropped it. I picked it up this afternoon when I was talking to Sergeant Trotter. You see what's inside it? A London bus ticket.
Oh,
That.
So it seems that you didn't only go to the village yesterday, you went to London as well.
Right, I went to...
Whilst I was safely away racing around the countryside.
Whilst you were racing around the countryside.
Come on now, admit it. You went to London.
All right, I went to London. So did you.
What?
So did you. You brought back an evening paper.
Where did you get hold of that?
It was in your overcoat pocket.
Anyone could have put it there.
Did they? No, you were in London.
All right, yes, I was in London. I didn't go to meet a woman there.
Didn't you? Are you sure you didn't?
Huh? What do you mean?
Go away, don't come near me.
What's the matter?
Don't touch me.
Did you go to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Don't be a fool. Of course I didn't.
Then why did you go?
I shan't tell you that. Perhaps now I've forgotten why I went.
Molly, what's come over you? You're different all of a sudden. I feel as though I don't know you anymore.
Perhaps you never did know me. We've been married for how long? A year? But you don't really know anything about me. What I done or thought or felt or suffered before you knew me.
Molly, you're crazy.
All right, then I'm crazy. Why not? Perhaps it's fun to be crazy.
What the hell are you?
Now. I do hope you young people are not both saying a little more than you mean. One is so apt to in these lovers' quarrels.
Lovers' quarrels? That's good.
Quite so. I know just how you feel. I have been through all this myself when I was a younger man. Jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been married long, I imagine.
It's no business of yours, Mr. Paravicini.
No business at all. But I just came in to say that Sargento cannot find his skis, and I'm afraid he's very annoyed.
Christopher.
What's that?
He wants to know if you have by any chance moved them, Mr. Ralston.
No, of course not.
Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston. Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston, have you removed my skis from the cupboard back there where we put them?
Certainly not.
Somebody's taken them.
What made you happen to look for them?
The snow is still lying. I need help here. Reinforcements. I was going to ski over to the police station at Market Hampton to report on the situation.
And now you can't. Dear. Somebody's seen to it that you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Yes, what?
Somebody may want to get away.
What do you mean when you said Christopher just now?
Nothing.
So our younger architect has hoped it, has he? Very, very interesting.
Is this true, Mrs. Ralston?
Oh, thank goodness, you haven't gone after all.
Did you take my skis, Mr. Wren?
Your skis, Sergeant? No, why should I?
Mrs. Ralston seemed to think...
Mr. Wren is very fond of skiing. I thought he might have taken them just to get a little exercise.
Exercise?
Now, listen, you people, this is a serious matter. Somebody has removed my only chance of communication with the outside world. I want everybody here at once.
I think Mr. Caswell has gone upstairs.
I'll get her.
I left Major Metcalf in the dining room. Major Metcalf, he's not there now.
I'll try to find him.
Hello, wanting me?
It's a question of my skis.
Skis?
Mr. Ralston,
did either of you two remove a pair of skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Good Lord, no. Why should I?
I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they are gone. Which way did you go to your room?
By the back stairs.
Then you passed the cupboard door.
If you say so. I've no idea where your skis are.
You were actually in the cupboard today?
Yes, I was.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed?
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed, I'd gone down to the cellar.
Were the skis in the cupboard when you passed through?
I haven't the least idea.
Didn't you see them there?
Can't remember.
You must have remembered if those skis were there then.
No good shouting at me, young fellow. I wasn't thinking about any damn skis. I was interested in the cellars. Architecture of this place is very interesting. I opened the other door and I went on down. So I can't tell you whether the skis were there or not.
You realize that you yourself had an excellent opportunity of taking them.
Yes, I grant you that. If I wanted to, that is.
The question is, where are they now?
Ought to be able to find them if we all set to. Not a case of hunt the thimble, whacking great things, skis. Supposing we all set to.
Not quite so fast, Major Metcalf. That may be, you know, what we are meant to do.
Eh? I don't get you.
I'm in a position now where I've got to put myself in the place of a crazy, cunning brain. I've got to ask myself what he wants us to do and what he himself is planning to do next. Oh, bloody heck. I don't know what happened here.
Papa 51.
Yeah, for some reason the bloody thing is not moving. What's going on here? I don't know. Let me just. There's 4 screens. I don't know why they popped up. This maybe go to Chrome. Is that it? Hold on. Oh, bloody heck. Yikes. No, that's not it. Let me just. Oh, bloody. All right, now we're back. Okay. Where were we? Which page?
Top of 51.
51. Okay, great.
I've got to try and keep.
I've got to try and keep just one step ahead of him, because if I don't, there's going to be another death.
You still don't believe that?
Yes, Miss Casewell, I do. 3 blind mice, 2 mice cancelled out, a 3rd mice still to be dealt with. There are 6 of you here listening to me. 1 of you's a killer. 1 of you's a killer. I don't know which yet, but I shall. And another 1 of you is the killer's prospective victim. That's the person I'm speaking to. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. Mrs. Boyle is dead. You, whoever you are holding out on me. Well, don't, because you're in danger. Nobody who's killed twice is going to hesitate to kill a 3rd time. And as it is, I don't know which of you it is who needs protection. Come on now, anybody here who has anything, however slight, to reproach themselves for in that bygone business had better come out with it. All right, you won't. I'll get the killer. I've no doubt of that, but it may be too late for 1 of you. And I'll tell you another thing. The killer's enjoying this. Yes, he's enjoying himself a good deal. All right, you can go.
Talking of chicken, dear lady, have you ever tried a chicken liver served on a toast that's been thickly smeared with foie gras, but a very thin rasher of bacon just touched with a souchon of a fresh mustard? I will come with you to the kitchen and we will see what we can concoct together. A charming occupation.
I'm helping my wife, Paravicini.
Your husband is afraid for you, quite natural under the circumstances. He doesn't fancy your being alone with me. It is my sadistic tendencies he fears, not my dishonorable ones. Alas, what an inconvenience. The husband is always Rivadella.
I'm sure Giles doesn't think.
He's very wise, takes no chances. Can I prove to you or to him, to our dogged Sargento, that I am not a homicidal maniac, so difficult to prove a negative? And I suppose that instead I am a really,
Oh, don't.
such a gay little coon, don't you think? She's cut off of the tails with the carving knife. Sneak. Delicioso. Just what a child would adore. Cruel little things, children. Some of them never grow up.
Stop frightening my wife at once.
It's silly of me, but you see, I found her. Her face was all purple. I I can't forget it.
I know. It's difficult to forget things, isn't it? You aren't really the forgetting kind.
I must go. The food, dinner, prepare the spinach. And the potatoes are going to pieces. Please, Giles.
What did you say to that lady to upset her, sir?
Me, Sargento? Oh, just a little innocent fun. I've always been fond of a little joke.
There's nice fun, and then there's fun that's not so nice.
Now, I do wonder what you mean by that, Sargento.
I've been doing a little wondering about you, sir.
Indeed.
I've been wondering about that car of yours and how it happened to overturn in a snowdrift so conveniently.
Inconveniently, you mean, don't you, Sargento?
That rather depends on the way you're looking at it. Just where were you bound for, by the way, when you had this accident?
Oh, I was on my way to see a friend.
In this neighborhood?
Not so very far from here.
And what was the name and address of this friend?
And now, really, Sargento Trotter, does that matter now? I mean, it has nothing to do with this predicament, has it?
We always like the fullest information. What did you say this friend's name was?
I didn't say.
No, you didn't say, and it seems you're not going to say. Now, that's very interesting.
But there might be so many reasons. Amour, discretion, these jealous husbands.
Rather old to be running around with the ladies at your time of life, aren't you?
My dear Sargento, I am not perhaps quite so old as I look.
That's just what I've been thinking, sir.
What?
That you may not be as old as you try to look. There's a lot of people trying to look younger than they are. If somebody goes about trying to look older, well, it does make one ask oneself why.
Having asked the questions of so many people, you ask the questions of yourself as well. Isn't that overdoing things?
I might get an answer from myself. I don't get many from you.
Well, try again. That is, if you have any more questions to ask.
One or two. Where were you coming from last night?
Oh, that's simple. From London.
What address in London?
I always stay at the Ritz Hotel.
Very nice too, I'm sure. What is your permanent address?
I dislike a permanency.
What's your business or profession?
I play the markets.
Stockbroker?
No, you misunderstand me.
Enjoying this little game, aren't you? Sure of yourself too, but I shouldn't be too sure. You're mixed up in a murder case, and don't you forget it. Murder isn't just fun and games.
Not even this murder. Dear me, you are very serious, Sargento Trotter. I have always thought policemen may have no sense of humor. Is the Inquisition over for the momento?
For the moment, yes.
Thank you so much. I shall go and look for your skis in the drawing room, just in case someone has hidden them in the grand piano.
Just a minute, please.
Were you speaking to me?
Perhaps you'd come and sit down, yes.
Well, what do you want?
You may have heard some of the questions I was asking Mr. Paravicini.
I heard them.
I'd like to have a little information from you.
What do you want to know?
Full name, please.
Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Catherine.
I spell it with a K.
Quite so. Address?
Villa Mariposa, Pine Door, Majorca.
That's in Italy.
It's an island, a Spanish island.
I see. And your address in England?
Care of Morgan's Bank, Leadenhall Street.
No other English address?
No.
How long have you been in England?
A week.
And you have been staying since your arrival?
At the Ledbury Hotel, Knightsbridge.
What's brought you to Monsquell Manor, Miss Casewell?
Wanted somewhere quiet, in the country.
How long did you or do you propose to remain here?
Until I have finished what I have come here to do.
And what was that? And what was that?
Eh?
What was it you came here to do?
I beg your pardon. I was thinking of something else.
You haven't answered my question.
I really don't see, you know, why I should. It's a matter that concerns me alone. A strictly private affair.
All the same, Miss Casewell.
No, I don't think we'll argue about it.
Would you mind telling me your age?
Not in the least. It's on my passport. I am 24.
24.
You were thinking I look older. That is quite true.
Is there anyone in this country who can vouch for you?
My bank will reassure you as to my financial position. I can also refer you to a solicitor, a very discreet man. I am not in a position to offer you a social reference. I have lived most of my life abroad.
In Majorca?
In Majorca and other places.
Were you born abroad?
No, I left England when I was 13.
You know, Miss Casewell, I can't quite make you out.
Does it matter?
I don't know. What are you doing here?
It seems to worry you.
It does worry me. You went abroad when you were 13.
12, 13, thereabouts.
Was your name Casewell then?
It is my name now.
What was your name then? Come on, tell me.
What are you trying to prove?
I want to know what your name was when you left England.
A long time ago. I've forgotten.
There are things one doesn't forget.
Possibly.
Unhappiness, despair.
I dare say.
What's your real name?
I told you. Leslie, Margaret, Catherine.
Catherine. What the hell are you doing here?
Oh God. I wish to God I'd never come here.
I always thought the police weren't allowed to give people the third degree.
I have merely been interrogating Miss Casewell.
You seem to have upset her. What did he do?
No, it's nothing. It's just all this murder. It's so horrible. Came over me suddenly. I'll go up to my room.
It's impossible. I can't believe it.
What can't you believe? 6 impossible things before breakfast, like the Red Queen.
Oh, yes, it's rather like that.
Dear me, you look as though you'd seen a ghost.
I've seen something I ought to have seen before. Blind as a bat I've been. But I think now we may be able to get somewhere.
Police have a clue.
Yes, Mr. N. At last the police have a clue. I want everyone assembled in here again. Do you know where they are?
Well, Giles and Molly are in the kitchen. I have been helping Major Metcalf to look for your skis. We've looked in the most entertaining places, but all to no avail. I don't know where Caravicini is.
I'll get him. You get the others.
Yes, Sergeant.
Guys,
What can I do for you? Little Bo policeman has lost his keys and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and then they'll come home dragging a murderer behind them.
What is all this?
Sit down, Major, Mrs. Ralston.
Must I come now? It's very inconvenient.
There are more important things than meals, Mrs. Ralston. Mrs. Boyle, for instance, won't want another meal.
That's a very tactless way of putting things, Sergeant.
I'm sorry, but I want cooperation and I intend to get it. Mr. Ralston, will you go and ask Miss Casewell to come down again? She went up in her room. Tell her it would only be for a few minutes.
Have your skis been found, Sergeant?
No, Mrs. Ralston, but I may say I have a very shrewd suspicion of who took them and why they were taken. I won't say any more at the present moment.
Please don't. I always think explanations should be kept to the very end. That's exciting last chapter, you know.
This isn't a game, sir.
Isn't it? Now, there I think you are wrong. I think it is a game to somebody.
You think the murderer is enjoying himself? Maybe.
What is happening?
Sit down, Miss Casewell. Mrs. Ralston, will you all pay attention, please? You may remember that after the murder of Mrs. Boyle, I took statements from you all. Those statements related to your positions at the time the murder was committed. These statements were as follows. Mrs. Ralston in the kitchen, Mr. Paravicini playing the piano in the drawing room, Mr. Ralston in his bedroom, Mr. Wren, ditto. Miss Casewell in the library, Major Metcalf in the cellar.
Correct.
Those were the statements you made. I had no means of checking these statements. They may be true, they may be not. To put it quite clearly, 5 of those statements are true, but 1 is false. Which one? 5 of you were speaking the truth, 1 of you was lying. I have a plan that may help me to discover the liar. And if I discover that 1 of you lied to me, then I know who the murderer is.
Not necessarily. Someone may have lied for some other reason.
I rather doubt that.
But what's the idea? You just said you had no means of checking out these statements.
No, but supposing everyone was to go through these actions a second time.
Paravicini.
That's a chestnut. A reconstruction of the crime.
That's a foreign idea.
No, not a reconstruction of the crime, Mr. Paravicini, a reconstruction of the movements of apparently innocent persons.
What do you expect to learn from that?
You will forgive me if I don't make that clear just at the moment.
You want a repeat performance?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I do.
It's a trap.
What do you mean it's a trap?
It's a trap. I know it is.
I only want people to do exactly what they did before.
But I don't see, I simply can't see what you can possibly hope to find out by just making people do the things they did before. I think it's just nonsense.
Do you, Mr. Ed?
Well, you can count me out. I'm too busy in the kitchen.
I can't count anybody out. One might almost believe that they're all guilty by the looks of you. Why are you all so unwilling?
Of course, what do you say goes, Sergeant? We'll all cooperate, eh, Molly?
Very well.
Wren? Miss
Okay.
Casewell?
Yes?
Paravicini?
Yes, I consent.
Metcalf?
Yes.
Are we all to do exactly what we did before?
The same actions will be performed, yes.
Then I will return to the piano in the drawing room. Once again, I will pick out with 1 finger the signature tune of a murderer. Dum-ba-dum-ba-dum, a-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum.
Not quite so fast, Mr. Paravicini. Do you play the piano, Mrs. Ralston?
Yes, I do.
And you know the tune of 3 Blind Mice?
Don't we all know it?
Then you could pick it out on the piano with 1 finger, just as Mr. Pavaricini did. Well, good. But please go into the drawing room, sit at the piano, and be ready to play when I give you the signal.
But Sargento, I understand that we were each to repeat our former roles.
The same actions will be performed, but not necessarily by the same people. Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
I don't see the point.
There is a point. It is a means of checking up on the original statements and maybe 1 statement in particular. Now then, will you all pay attention, please? I will assign each of you new stations. Mr. N, will you kindly go to the kitchen? Just keep an eye on Miss Ralston's dinner for her. You're very fond of cooking, I believe. Mr. Paravicini, will you go up to Mr. N's room? By the back stairs is the most convenient way. Major Metcalf, will you go up to Mr. Ralston's room and examine the telephone there? Miss Casewell, would you mind going down to the cellars? Mr. Wren will show you the way. Unfortunately, I need someone to reproduce my own actions. I am sorry to ask it of you, Mr. Ralston, but would you go out by that window and follow the telephone wire round to the near front door? Rather a chilly job, but you're probably the toughest person here.
And what are you going to do?
I am enacting the part of Mrs. Boyle.
Taking a bit of a risk, aren't you?
You will all stay in your places and remain there until you hear me call you.
Parlor games.
No objection to my wearing a coat?
I shouldn't advise it, sir. Take my torch, sir. It's behind the curtain. Mrs. Ralston, count 20 and then begin to play. Mrs. Ralston! Mrs. Ralston!
Yes, what is it?
You're looking very pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
You know who the murderer is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say the wrong line here? I think I did, yes. That's your line. You look very pleased with yourself, Molly.
Oh, you look very pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
I've got exactly what I wanted.
You know who the murderer is?
Yes, I know.
Which of them?
You ought to know, Mrs. Ralston.
I?
Yes, you've been extraordinarily foolish, you know. You've run a very good chance of being killed by holding out on me. As a result, you've been in serious danger more than once.
I don't know what you mean.
Come now, Mrs. Ralston. We policemen aren't quite so dumb as you think. All along, I've realized that you had first-hand knowledge of the Longridge Farm affair. You knew Mrs. Boyle was the magistrate concerned. In fact, you knew all about it. Why didn't you speak up and say so?
I don't understand. I wanted to forget.
Your maiden name was Waring.
Yes?
Miss Waring, you taught school in the school those children went.
Yes.
It's true, isn't it, that Jimmy, the child who died, managed to get a letter posted to you. The letter begged for help from his kind young teacher. You never answered that letter.
I couldn't. I never got it.
You just didn't bother.
That's not true. I was ill. I went down with pneumonia that very day. The letter was put aside with others. It was weeks after that I found it, and with a lot of other letters. And by then that poor child was dead. Dead. Waiting for me to do something. Hoping, gradually losing hope. Oh, it's haunted me ever since. If only I hadn't been ill. If only I'd known. Oh, that's monstrous such things should happen.
Yes, it's monstrous.
I thought the police didn't carry revolvers.
The police don't. I'm not a policeman, Mrs. Ralston. You thought I was a policeman because I ran up from a call box and said I was speaking for police headquarters and that Sergeant Trotter was on his way. I cut the telephone wires before I came to the front door. You know who I am, Mrs. Ralston. I'm Georgie. I'm Jimmy's brother, Georgie.
Oh.
You'd better not scream, Mrs. Ralston, because if you do, I shall fire this revolver. I'd like to talk to you a little. I said I'd like to talk to you a little. Jimmy died. That nasty, cruel woman killed him. They put her in prison. Prison wasn't bad enough for her. I said I'd kill her one day. I did. I did too, in the fog. It was great fun. I hope Jimmy knows. I'll kill them all when I've grown up. That's what I said to myself, because grown-ups can do anything they like. I'm going to kill you in a minute.
You better not. You'll never get safely away, you know.
Someone's hidden my skis. I can't find them, but it doesn't matter, I don't really mind if I get away or not. I'm tired. It's all been such fun watching you all and pretending to be a policeman.
That revolver will make a lot of noise.
It will, rather. Much better to do it the usual way and take you by the neck. The last little mouse in the trap.
Georgie, you know me, don't you? Don't you remember the farm, Georgie? The animals, that fat old pig, the day the bull chased us across the field? And dogs?
Dogs?
Yes, Spot and Plain.
Cathy.
Yes, Kathy. You remember me now, don't you?
Cathy, is it you? What are you doing here?
I came to England to find you. I didn't recognize you until you twirled your hair the way you always used to do. Yes, you always did it. Georgie, come with me. You're coming with me.
Where are we going?
It's all right, Georgie. I'm taking you somewhere where they will look after you and see that you won't do any more harm.
Ralston!
Molly, are you all right, darling?
Oh, Giles.
Whoever would have dreamt it was Trotter?
He's mad, quite mad.
Yes, but you...
I was mixed up in it all. I taught in the school. It wasn't my fault, but he thought I could have saved that child.
You should have told me.
I wanted to forget.
Oh, everything's under control. He will be unconscious soon with a sedative. His sister's looking after him. That poor fellow's as mad as a hatter, of course. And I've had my suspicions of him all along.
You did? Didn't you believe he was a policeman?
I knew he wasn't a policeman. You see, Mrs. Ralston, I'm a policeman.
You?
As soon as we got hold of that notebook with Monkswell Manor written on it, we saw it was vital to have someone on the spot. When it was put to him, Major Metcalf agreed to let me take his place. I couldn't understand it when Trotter turned up.
And Casewell is his sister?
Yes, it seems she recognized him just before this last business. Didn't know what to do, but fortunately came to me about it, just in time. Well, it started to thaw. Our help should be here pretty soon. Now, by the way, Mrs. Ralston, I'll remove those skis. I hid them on top of the four-poster.
And I thought it was Paravicini.
I gather they'll examine that car of his rather carefully. I shouldn't be surprised if they found 1,000 or so Swiss watches in the spare wheel. Yes, that's his line of business. Nasty little bit of goods. Molly, I believe you thought I was...
Giles, what were you doing in London yesterday?
Darling, I was buying you an anniversary present. We've been married just a year today.
That's what I went That's what I went to London for, and I didn't want you to know.
No.
They're cigars. I do hope they're all right.
Oh, darling, how sweet of you. They're splendid.
You will smoke them?
I'll smoke them.
What's my present?
Oh, yes. I forgot all about your present. It's a hat.
A hat? But I practically never wear one.
Just for best.
Oh, how lovely, darling.
Put it on.
Later, when my hair's done properly.
It is all right, isn't it? The girl in the shop said it was the last thing in hats.
Mrs. Ralston, there's a terrible smell of burning coming from the kitchen.
Oh, my pie!
Curtain. The end.
Blackout. Yay!
Ooh. Fabulous.
Hey.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Very good job, everybody.
Yes, very good job, everybody. I enjoyed it tremendously. See you next time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mary Elena, just read all those plays in that link I gave you. I think we'll have some great readings there.
Yes. Thank you again.
All righty. Look forward to the next one. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Have a happy Sunday.
Thanks.
Bye.